Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, and if you ever miss the live show, which is most people, fear not, for it's always uploaded under the YouTube channel of Zenitsu, as well as being on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do that whole social media doobly-doo thing and leave that rating, like, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does support the podcast, or at least we like to think it does. So today, I know your days are numbered, but we are back with Jay Stewart, and we are back from the New Year's, and we're going to be basically talking about our New Year resolutions. Because there's a lot to look forward to in 2026, being obviously the start of the new year. So that's going to be really fun, and the big overarching discussion will be covering that. But before we get into the big topic, let's go to the comment of the week. So if you want to have a comment read, feel free to leave that down in the comments below. I mostly pick from YouTube people, and I do prioritize YouTube members in case you are a YouTube member and you want to have a comment read or ask a question from us. So Global Digital Empire's comment was from last week's video, and he says that Draft Cube is his favorite alternative Digimon format. So I guess, like, the big thing that stood out to me about that comment is more so the fact that it's a Draft Cube, and it's referring to alternative formats in Digimon, which, as we know from, what is it? It's not Evo Cups. What's their stupid thing that they call it? Regulation battles. That's it. They have alternative rule sets that they try out in regulation battles, but everyone hates those, and they don't ever stick with the community or resonate with the community very well. So it's interesting to see what other kind of formats could actually emerge in the Digimon trading card game. And I think, like, Digimon kind of is in a position where we really would benefit from having a dedicated second format. What are your thoughts, Jay Stewart?
Yeah, so I think there definitely is there might be you could say there or make the argument that there definitely should be like another format for the thing, because I know with the regulation battles, I think the one big problem is that everyone doesn't like about it is that it's not solving the problem of what everyone's been having lately, and that's these newer cards are power creeping the game to a very certain extent. So these regulation battles, they're using these newer cards. They're like saying, "Hey, you can only use sets from BT20 and upward." It's like, well, that's where the problem cards are. That's where we're having the problems. Like, I'm not like, what's it changing? Because last time they did the regulation battles, it literally didn't change anything about the format. People were still playing the meta deck that was used in competitive. So it was just like, well, what was the point of this?
Right, and if
Um,
anything, their current regulation rule sets have only made the meta deck stand out even more, which is ironic. Like, it limits the field, and it limits it so much that, like, there's realistically only, like, one or two actually playable decks that would even be, like, I guess not a shadow of a doubt playing. Like, there's no reason to play anything else but, like, the one or two meta competitive decks is kind of where I'm getting at. I get the ideas
yeah,
to let other things be playable, but because of how they've been designing cards recently, it kind of does the exact opposite.
yeah. I'm not sure what draft cube format or it was draft cube, right?
Yeah,
Like,
they
I'm
are
familiar with
playing
that one.
a
So
custom draft cube, so they probably have a more curated set of cards. I don't know exactly how Digimon's, like, draftability as a game goes, because, like, usually draft is draft is always fun. Um but I don't know how Digimon works in terms of being draftable. So, like, obviously, they have a custom set. They probably have their own custom rules to enable the draft to work to begin with. But yeah, that's what uh, Global Digital Empire. I just wanted to say like those three words jumbled up, but yeah, Global Digital Empire has found that they have made a custom draft cube workable for them. And like it's cool that they got something working for them, but obviously um me being a player wanting to expand the game and make it grow and have it be healthy, um I think like we do kind of need some kind of alternative secondary format. But the format that I actually was thinking about, you haven't played MTG at all, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, someone tried to teach it to me once, and I just was I could not get into it.
Yeah, so there is a like I was working on my own custom little format and I got to finish it. I have like probably percentage wise it's probably about like 70% done. I just need to finish the deck and I just need to play test it. But I was working on basically Digimon's own version of Dan Dan. So Dan Dan is a one deck format. So both players are playing out of the same exact deck. So the MTG version relies on a card called Dan Dan, where I think like both players start with a certain number of Dan Dans, or there's just a certain an above average amount of Dan Dans in the deck. Like they obviously have to break some of the more conventional rules to make this work. But the idea is it is magic at its purest. So Dan Dan is a 2 drop, uh, 4 power, 1 toughness creature, and it has an ability where it can't attack unless the defending player controls an island. And then when you control no islands, then you have to sacrifice Dan Dan. So the gimmick of that type of a format centered around this card in a single deck is it is a mono blue deck focused around like blue draw, blue combat tricks, and like blue, like just some classic blue stuff. So the only way to actually win is to have your Dan Dans punch the opponent to death. Like that is the only way for you to win. I don't know how deck out works, but I think the deck is designed where it's not supposed to deck out. But yeah, so that's kind of like the gimmick, and they'll have like counter spells and like I said, combat tricks and all the other fun stuff, some good card draw or whatnot. They're running 10 Dandans in their deck, and then everything else is a 2 of outside of Memory Lapse, because Memory Lapse puts Dandan on the top of the deck or something. I don't know. I'd have to go back and reread the rules, but I was working on a Digimon equivalent of Dandan, where the idea is to play out of one single deck. I'm not going to spoil what deck or like what archetype I was working with, because I'm obviously still working on that, but I do think having something like that for the game would be a net positive. Even though it's not like a big overarching format that everyone plays, I think having something fun and casual while using some cards that people aren't necessarily like using would be really good. So that way, like somebody new, they could be like, all right, I'm going to pull out my one single deck, slap it on the table, and we're going to play off of this. And I'll teach them how to play Digimon by proxy utilizing that deck.
Yeah, I can see that theoretically working. I think for me though, personally, if I was wanting to get a alternate format, maybe just like even just doing like legacy format, just something as simple of like doing like, hey, anything from BT9 and down is good to play, and we're gonna actually use the bans and restrictions in effect with this. So, like take for example, like where Garurumon and Alphamon were probably considered the best decks of the time, but they didn't get hit, so we didn't know what other decks could have been good. So imagine if we had actually implemented those bans and restrictions, what other decks could have shined during that format potentially with the current ban and restrictions.
I like that idea a lot. It's just getting the rest of the community on board with what timestamps to use and like what ban and restriction I guess to use would be the hardest thing. I mean, I don't necessarily think Bandai's going to be banning that many more older cards, or at least I'm hoping that they don't. Um, but honestly, I think like personally, my best timestamp is BT13. I think BT13 gives you a good breadth of decks that are decent and strong. And like, yes, you could say that Shine and Mirage were very clearly the two best decks. They weren't, from metrics wise, they weren't by that large of a margin. I think like Shine only had like 23% representation and Mirage had maybe like 10 or 12. So it wasn't like by that large of a margin. And then, like you said, if we implement a more, I guess, proactive ban and restriction update, so it's just like, okay, what does BT13 Shine look like without what was it? BT13
I think it was the
Geo Greymon.
option card.
Yeah, like what does it look like without its Geo Greymon? And what does Mirage look like without its Mirage? Like I still 100% think Mirage is playable, like, but it's not straight up just solely.
Overtuned.
Yeah, it's not going to be super overtuned. So like I think that kind of idea would be really good, but again, the community, like, from experiencing Magic formats come and go, the community itself there needs to be a community itself built around it, or official support. So like I know Yu-Gi-Oh does Time Wizard with like Goat and Edison and all that other fun stuff. I don't know all of them. But that was like a community decided thing where they were just like, this is the format. And everyone just kind of was like, yep, all aboard. And I know like their time stamped like Time Wizard formats weren't official for a while. So
Yeah, because like the only problem I would think there would be with that idea is like it's rewarding a lot of older players that maybe still kept their cards, but there's theoretically also older players who don't keep all their older cards, or even newer players who don't have access to those cards.
yeah, I mean
Like that
like
would be the one caveat with it.
right now, like if you go look at like individual prices on TCG Player, the majority of the cards from like BT13 below aren't necessarily super expensive. There's a couple that are up there. I'm not going to lie and say that there's not. There are. But like I feel like that type of a format wouldn't be like, it would definitely have a way lower barrier to entry, and then it also wouldn't necessarily need a lot of some of the um like the newer stuff, obviously. So it's just like, okay, depending on how you handle promos and depending on if you're allowing RB01 in that, like, let's just use the BT13 type thing. Like if that was the format, where do you stop on promos? Because Bandai had like done goofy shit with their promos. And then the other thing is, do you allow RB01? And like I think allowing RB01 would be fine, but like obviously discussing promos would be a really big topic, because if you just now say, hey, we the English audience played BT13 without the training cards, but training cards were technically supposed to be legal in that format. What do we do here then? So like,
Well, I think it would be a different, like it's something that you could theoretically do to shake up and make like revisiting BT13 kind of feel fresh in a way. Like let's say if we were to go Japan standards and everything, for example, it's like, all right, during this time period of when BT13 was out till the next set was out, BT14, whenever that official release date was, any cards that were out before BT14 are legal, and we just stick to the current banner restriction list and everything. So like implement, so like I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Like, while Mirage wasn't necessarily as big of a threat as it was back then in BT13, still hitting it, like just implementing its current ban and restriction list on it, it just kind of, how do I want to say this? It shakes up the format to where Mirage is not going to be overtuned with the introductions of the training cards into that, because again, Mirage probably would have been way more overpowered if it had training cards in BT13.
Right, because I'm looking at just the training cards, and they were technically labeled as Block 2. So like without, like, I guess that's kind of the interesting thing is like without um without Mirage, like the good Mirage, but you have the training cards, like what does the format look like then? Like there's a lot of like interesting give and takes. And I'd have to like go back at some of my YouTube videos and see what the BT13 meta actually looked like to be able to try to assess some of that. But like right after the training cards, we have the promos with the aces in it, which those are labeled as block 3. So I think like promos up to block 2 would probably be okay. And I think like honestly, if you really wanted to make that format healthier, just say no trainings. Like those are the exceptions, just no trainings. But some people might want that. But that's again something that needs playtesting and universal agreement as far as what we're actually trying to gain out of that time stamped format. Because I think we played BT13 without like the Saberdramon, without the Dracomon, without the Bastimon, without Destro, without the promo Zubamon, without the promo Edamon. The Raremon's a big one, Kawagamon. Like there was a good chunk of promos that were not technically legal in BT13 that maybe with their inclusion in BT13 would be interesting. And then I do think what are the RB cards? I'm curious on what their stamp is. I'm just where's RB01? I think they should be block 2 cards if memory serves. Yeah, they're block 2. So like that's kind of where like, oh yeah, the block icons just make things easy, where it's just like, yeah, block 2 cards, like all cards up to block 2 are legal. That's like the
Yeah, so
easiest way to say it.
yeah, so maybe not set format, more like a block format, but not the block format we've talked in the past, where it's like anything BT3 and up being legal, more like anything BT3 and, or I'm sorry, block 3 or down. Got it. Block 2 in this case, block 2 and down is legal for this format. Just to make it very simple, but still implement the current bans and restrictions into it.
Yeah, cuz I'm not a cube builder. I've never built a cube. I've drafted plenty of times. I was working when I was on Argent Saga. The last thing that I was tasked with was to design the set to be draftable. Um that didn't end up panning out, but I did a lot of draft research. So like I think like draft in Digimon could be a thing, but draft in Digimon is more like a pocket thing, and I just think like having a big micro format would be beneficial, but we as a community have to agree. That's the hardest part is we the community have to agree, and we have to want to play that and accept that as a form of play, which we haven't because we've been so focused on meta this, meta that, new this, new that. And Bandai makes it very hard for us to want to do that because they keep shoving product down our throat at such a rapid pace. Like, and I'm not saying that's like a bad thing. That's unfortunately what Bandai has to do. Because look at everyone else; they're releasing sets back to back to back nonstop, like it's on hot, like a hot cake. But I think for having a alternative style of play, we need to agree on something.
Yeah.
All right. So that is the comments of the week. And again, post your comment down below if you want us to have it be read. Um, and we'll go ahead and read it next week. But right now, we got a new season of anime. So they are treating it like seasonal anime. So it is being broken down into 12 episode arcs, and um, the new one is just starting. And obviously, this one is going to be about the 5 stars from what they were alluding to, but based on like some of the trailers and whatnot, it's actually going to be Glowing Dawn versus Team Tactic, I think.
Yeah. So do we want to go ahead and say a spoiler warning right here, or do we not care anymore?
No, we'll do the whole spoiler warning. So, spoiler warning for episode 13 of the anime. You have been warned. So now that that is out of the way, I'll try to find the timestamp. I know I need to do better at that. When it comes to the spoilers, so we're gonna try to keep it a little bit on the briefer side. So that way we don't spend like the whole time talking about it. But
Yeah.
all right, now that that disclaimer's all out of the way, this episode was very, it was compact. Like story wise, there was a lot of stuff thrown at us, but like event wise, there was really not a whole lot. Like to summarize the episode, basically, Glowing Dawn is happy that they all have champions. They get their first mission, and it is to stop a bomber Nanimon, and then they fight bomber Namimon, and then basically kind of just insert new team comes in, swoops up the reward, and that was for the most part the episode. In terms of like big beats, in terms of like what actually was going on. But there was a lot of subtext in the episode that was doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of a lot of setup, because they were talking about something with the Shangri-La plan. We got to meet each of the 5-star members, and we got introduced to basically like a rival or antagonistic tamer squad. I couldn't think of the word for a second. And
Well,
um cleaners, cleaner group, there we go. And it looks like they're going to be like a antagonistic force or something that leads into a bigger antagonistic force throughout the season.
yeah. So like, it literally this episode started out with like, when the 5 members met, the chairman of the members literally was talking about this catastrophic event that happened, like where like millions of people, he said, they're not confirmed dead or missing, they just vanished or something like that 20 years prior to beatbreak happening, hence why they had to create the Shangri-La, like a place, topia thing. But since the rise of Digimon has been increasing, they're now wanting to start this plan of Shangri-La, which we don't know the exact details of. But even as far as this tactic cleaning team, they're actually working with one of the other 5-star members, the Earth dude.
Yeah, and the Earth Dude's partner is actually going to be um, from Liberator. So it's cool that Liberator is having an impact on the greater scheme of Digimon, because his partner was Paragnomon. So that means we might get some subtle rock and mineral support. So it definitely seems like out of all the Liberator decks, that's the one you should probably invest the most in. Um,
Well, we also know the Marine. I'm trying to blank.
Marine Bullmon.
Marine. Yeah, Marine Bolmon. It was in episode 12 as well. So like, Liberator's getting some type of more support, like, or more visual representation in this season so far. It seems like.
Yeah, but like a one-off Digimon of the week versus like, hey, I'm actually part of a named group paired up with a named character is a little bit different. Uh,
That's
but
true.
but we know the 5 stars, so it is fire, wood, water, earth, and gold. So based on what we know, it seems like Kyo used to be the previous gold member, because I don't think he fits
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Well, they also mentioned how the guy that's currently taking place as Gold, he's no Kyo. So like, I'm pretty sure the fire dude, he mentions that, and I couldn't pay attention to the water chick. She was simping on the fire dude way too much, honestly.
I mean, yeah. But the wood chick also mentioned that. So like, in terms of partners, the fire guy has Flairmon. The water girl has Marine Chimeramon. The wood chick has Lilamon. Earth has Progna, and Gold has Goku.
Yeah, which if we're not mistaken, that's the same one that stole uh Jesus Christ, I can't think the beat of the one guy's brother.
Yeah, most likely. Because like it's obviously trying to set up that something fishy is going on with the 5 stars and the chairman and his whole plan and like
At
everything.
least the gold guy. At least the gold guy for a fact is.
Yeah.
Because the fire dude was kind of butting heads with him, the gold dude, during the meeting. The chairman's like, please, I need all 5 star members to cooperate and work together in order to effectively activate the Shangri-La plan.
Yeah.
So the gold guy's definitely doing something that perhaps the other star members maybe may not partake in. But now with this Earth dude, with the end of that episode, it's like, okay, maybe he's also trying to do something as well because he's clearly wanting to interfere with Glowing Dawn himself. But I don't think it's the same reason as Gold, in all honesty.
Yeah, so the Earth member, he has his own sub team, Team Tact, I believe is what their name is. And
Tactic.
yeah, Tactic. And they have Ludamon, Monodramon, and Siakomon as like their antagonistic Digimon group, and it feels like they're supposed to be on the same power level as Glowing Dawn. At least like minus Kyo. I guess technically with Kyo because they are technically backed by a 5 star member, but I digress. It definitely feels like something is going on between Team Tactic and Glowing Dawn that's going to basically be a lot of butting heads throughout the season. That's what they're obviously setting up in the preview for next episode. Pretty much is all but confirming that. So I don't know how many episodes they're going to spend on that little rivalry and then go into something bigger. So I'm thinking like in terms of 12 episode anime structure, they'll probably spend half the season fighting with Team Tactic and then realize, oh, something needs both of their attentions, and then they'll put aside their differences and work together or something. That's like just a very stereotypical rundown on how things are going to play out.
Yeah, because
Um,
Team Tactic did seem very militaristic. Like they all wear same uniform. Well, I don't know if you can really say it was the same uniform, but it was like the clothing style was very similar when it comes to their colors, and they even mentioned it was like a uniform, and there's like rules they follow, and they kind of the way they're answering, like when someone's questioning what their rules is, like time efficiency and everything. Like you were supposed to be back 3 minutes ago. What's the rules? And like they all start verbatimly talking about what the rules are with their team. It's like it's very militaristic, honestly.
yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how this rival group is going to combats Glowing Dawn and vice versa, and what kind of growth is going to happen as a result, or where the story is going to go. Because, like, obviously, we could just use anime tropes to kind of figure out, like, an idea, but we don't actually know. And that's always the fun part. Um, so, yeah, that is going to be Beat Break in a nutshell. So, I thought the episode was pretty good, though. Like, it was funny. It was cute. There was a lot of good context and world building in it.
Hmm.
So yeah. Now we could probably go into our big topic, which is New Year's resolution. So I guess I'll have you start with New Year's resolution. So like the big thing is what do you want personally and what do you want out of Digimon? So personal
Yeah.
could
So
be literally like anything. It could be like what do you want out of school? What do you want out of like being a better player? What do you want like just anything?
yeah. So with me, like I said, I'm going into my final semester of college, and this one looks like it's gonna really start kicking my teeth in. So kind of why I'm stepping away from the podcast after this episode. Not because bad relations, it's just because college is a pain in the butt. But either way, I think what I'm just mostly looking forward to when it comes to this year in my personal life is I'm just wanting to get college done and over with. I want to get that degree in my hand, and that way I could just be done with this. And hopefully, I will eventually, after I get the degree, be getting a better paying job. So maybe I could start affording more Digimon products like I used to back when I first started getting like 2 or 3 boxes every set came out. As far as like what I would like Digimon to do as of this year, um, so I obviously the Digimon's TCG is like starting to come to a wrap with like Worlds coming up and everything. Um, I really want Bandai to kind of like obvious like if it really feels like at the end of every world tournament they do, there always seems to be like a new TCG they've been introducing. I need them to stop doing that, and I think it's they need a. I honestly think there should be another TCG that they do drop. I don't think it's Digimon. I don't think it's gonna be One Piece. Gundam's way too new. But like, there's definitely another TCG they probably should drop or stop supporting, and they really do need to get on the ball. Like, I need Bandai to do better with the Digimon TCG. Honestly, whether it's paying more attention, being more retroactive when it comes to ban and restriction lists, or even just being like better prize supporting for these tournaments as well.
I could agree with that. I think the one TCG that looks to be in the roughest shape is obviously Dragon Ball Super Masters. I think they literally get like 2 sets a year at this point, and like they already have Fusion World. So like they have two Dragon Ball games running at the same time. I think that's a little awkward. So like if they were to cut any game, I think Masters just makes the most logical sense. Even though I think like Masters is doing well enough to where it might not be making them money, but they're definitely not losing money on it, which is like the interesting part of like minimal viable products. Like I think like they definitely have reached Masters being like the minimum viable product where it's just like, yeah, we don't have to kill it. But I do think like it is taking away resources that could be put into other stuff, even though it doesn't seem like there's a lot of resources going in it to begin with. Um, I don't know. I'm not Bandai, but I kind of would agree with that kind of a sentiment. There is just a lot of TCGs, and competition is fierce. And the second you get sick of one game, it's very easy to just say, "Hey, I'm just gonna sell out and leave for a completely different game." Um, it definitely feels very easy to do that, especially with how many games there are.
Yeah, because like take well, obviously when One Piece came out, so many people left Digimon to go join One Piece. People got sick of One Piece, and they went to Union Arena. Got sick of Union Arena. Now they're jumping ship to Gundam. It's just like it's not helping the case that while Digimon, like when Digimon came out, it was between like only like four other ones: Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Magic, and Yu-Gi-Oh. You weren't really pulling from your own audience because, as we said last episode, or I think it was last episode of the podcast, or even in your video where you were talking about comboing, like a lot of players who are kind of used to this style, like a lot of them are ex Yu-Gi-Oh players. Like the more games that Bandai's introducing under their name, you're going to be pulling away people from your own other games. It's just like you're not pulling from the competition. You're pulling away from yourself.
Yeah, they kind of are like with just how many TCGs they have. It does feel like they are eating their own pie in a sense. Like the idea is obviously to try to steal from all of the others, and having all of these different IPs makes it easier for a non-Bandai player to start playing a Bandai game. But at the same time, you also have in Bandai fighting, and we even see this on their streams where it's just like you'll have like all the different communities like hardcore attacking each other and being like, this isn't my game, I'm not here for this, put the good thing that I'm here specifically for. You'll have that no matter what game that they show. That's always going to be there. I've read those comments.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the problem with running too many card games. Like Bushiroad definitely learned their lesson that they should not be doing more than 3. 3 seems like their cap in terms of like how many TCGs they should support. When they went over 3, it always crash burned and failed. So it's a miracle that Bandai has so many and each one is doing good, but that's because I think the overall quality of the average game coming out now is a lot higher than like in 2010 or even in the early 2000s. So like
Well,
people
I
look
think
at Bandai's card game graveyard as like an example, and they have a lot. Not gonna lie, but I feel like back then it was just more cash grab, and now there's actually a good game behind it.
to be fair, I think it's also like Bandai is technically a bigger company than Bushiroad, but Bandai also has been taking success from all the other games and implementing it into their next one over and everything. Like take for example, Gundam TCG. It has its own little security or its shields and everything. That's Gundam. And then you got like the resource system. I think that's like One Piece if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
it's similar to Dawn, where you're just passively gaining resources, a la Hearthstone.
Yeah. So it's just like they're taking the best elements of their game and implementing it into the next one with adding some quote unquote originality to it.
Yeah, like it's easier for Bandai players to transition to Bandai games as a result because of that like homogenized style of design, but like at the same time, it's just like a lot of Bandai games do feel very similar to each other as a result, which again could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the type of player that you are. It's just like, "Oh, if you didn't enjoy One Piece, you're not going to enjoy Dragon Ball." Like, I'll say that right now, you're just not going to enjoy Dragon Ball, or vice versa. And if you aren't enjoying Digimon, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to end up enjoying Gundam, like or Union
I don't know
Arena.
if, to be fair though, because like with Digimon, it's like you're building an evolutionary stack. You're not using like resources. You're using like a memory gauge. Like those concepts are still very unique within Digimon. That it's not implemented into the other games. To be fair,
Okay, I guess a more apt comparison would be if you didn't like Union Arena, you're probably not going to like Gundam. I think that's
yeah.
probably more fair. Because Union Arena does have like its own weird resource system thing that it's trying to do. I played like a couple of rounds of Union Arena. Um, it's an interesting game. It's not my game. Definitely not my game. Um, but they there's a lot of common DNA, yes, between all of their games, for the good or for the bad. But what else would you want out of Digimon? Like obviously better prize support, better attentiveness towards bans and restrictions, a more focus on Digimon.
Yeah, the last thing I think I would want from this year is for that Digimon TCG simulator to hopefully be coming out this year at some point. Honestly, because it'd just be nice to play that like on the go or something while I'm like sitting at I'm like chilling on a 30-minute break at work or something like that.
I feel you. I the mobile sim is definitely going to be a very interesting thing when it comes out. I don't know how they're going to handle it, if they're literally just going to do all the way from set 1 and just slow roll it, or if they're going to try to pull like a pocket and just shotgun all the way up until they're caught up. Like there's so much cuz like they do want it to be the Digimon sim. So like it's going to be very interesting to see how it actually plays out, what the monetization's like. There's still a lot of unknowns, and I don't think that they have everything figured out and programmed out, even though the beta looked pretty polished and the demos from what I've been hearing are decent in terms of like where they are and how things are playing and feeling. So I think they're just trying to lock down a lot of logistics. Because I think
Yeah, because
like having Liberator
that's what.
exclusive cards in each set does spice up the format a lot. So like, oh, BT 1, 2, and 3 spiced up with, let's just say, 50 new cards. Like that could have an impact on how that meta plays out. So I don't know. I
Oh
think
yeah, because like I think with the beta too, it's just like the other thing that might be a concern is like the whole servers and everything. Because how many people have been saying they've been waiting for a Digimon simulator, like an official one that they can play on their phone? So it's just like the moment that comes out, I'm pretty sure it's going to get bomb rushed by like thousands of active players instantly. So it's like, are their servers going to be able to handle it? Is they're probably going through this like we need to make sure this is hopefully perfect. Like check every nook and cranny, make sure there's no glitches, make sure card effects aren't reading correctly, make sure the computer is understanding it. Because I know Wong Zero's DCGU, I think like every once in a while there's still like some things that they are trying to perfect and everything with theirs when it comes to their simulator, just to make sure that the card ruling is still correct. And there's even times that he mentions on there, hey, we've just been reported that there's a glitch of how the card resolve should be working, but it's not, and they have to go back in there and they have to try to fix it and correct it. Just a small example.
I think part of that is like just the sheer increased complexity of the Digimon card game. Like, I think obviously programming sets like 1 through 5 is going to be easier than programming sets BT 22 and 23. Just because the interactions between cards is a lot higher. Where it's just like, oh, this card plays this card for free, this card plays this card for free, this card now gains me memory, and then when I gain memory, something else happens. Like there's a lot of cascading style of effects. Um, and making sure that like each individual part of that interaction is correct is not necessarily the easiest thing. So I do give Huang a lot of props for the work that he's put into the current sim, but like I do see where later on that those same issues could be the same issues that Bandai ends up facing, where the complexity just gets a lot higher to the point where the simulator just it takes longer to make cards because the complexity is higher and it takes more time to program and time to bug fix and bug test. But that's assuming Bandai even does that. I would hope that they do, because I don't know who exactly is developing the app, if it's like a dedicated, completely separate team, or if it is just the same people that's working on the TCG just hired into it. I don't know. Ideally, they
Yeah,
would want a
unfortunately.
separate team.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that one myself either.
Yeah. Because, like, just how in Pokemon TCG Pocket, you have DNA, that is the mobile developer for that game. It's not Pokemon, like, it's not Game Freak or Pokemon proper. They just hired somebody else out to do it. So I would hope that Bandai took the same type of approach, but knowing Bandai has huge control issues, I wouldn't surprise me if they have, like, this own little internal team that's like very clearly over their heads. But I mean, hey, they have a Dragon Ball simulator working, so who knows?
Yeah.
As far as my New Year's resolution, I would like to have a stable job because right now I am technically a temp, and my contract is close to running out. It was really funny because nobody decided upon writing the contract, uh, figuring out what an end date was. So when I talked to my recruiting company that I work through, they're just like, we have no idea when your end date is. And then when I talk to the company that I'm currently contracted out to, they're just like, we have no idea. So I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, okay, it's been almost 3 months. I know these contracts usually last for about 3 months and then kind of go from there. So I'm like very nervous and anxious what's going to happen. Um, whether I'm going to be staying with this current company or if I'm going to be leaving it and then hired out to a different company via the recruiter. So I really just big goal want a stable job in 2026, and then I would like probably with that stable job a more stable life, I guess. um Lock down like a girlfriend and figure out content scheduling and all that stuff. Although like content is already pretty difficult because I got some big decisions on how I want to pursue my channel going forward. Um cuz I don't fuck if I know what kind of content I'm trying to make. I feel like I do want to try to focus more on designer aspects. Um and less about the actual Digimon TCG itself. So, like, probably just like less deck profiles, just as an example, and more topics like my combo topic. Like, I think those are the kind of videos I want to pursue, even though those types of videos are harder to make because script writing is so time consuming. I hate script writing, but like I find the concepts that I would want to talk about to be very interesting. And like the podcast started as like partially a free form way of being able to do those types of topics um with a conversation with another person. So I have a lot of like YouTube soul searching to do in 2026. Um so those are my big personal goals. I guess like technically I also need to work out and get healthier. But that's like a given for everyone, I think. And then we'll just drop it a month later. But I'm gonna try not dropping that. And
Yeah,
then
I definitely got to do the same thing too. But the problem is I like food too much.
I have that same problem. I eat way too much food and I love unhealthy food too much. So it's just like, oh yeah, did I really need to have that like extra large portion of the stir fry that I made? Probably not, but did it taste good? It so did. So I do know I have a food addiction. It is a problem. I'm not like fat. I'm only. I mean, technically for my heights, I am fat. Um, but I'm not like that bad.
Yeah, I would say I'm like husky, not like chubby. It's like in between normal and chubby, just kind of stuck in that middle.
Yeah. Body type chart wise, not to get like too creepy, I probably would have like dad or bear bod, something around that range.
Yeah,
Um.
that sounds about right for me.
So. But yeah, I obviously I know part of like losing the weight is just diet. Um but I do want to exercise more just because like exercise and diet go hand in hand. So it's just like even though the act of losing weight is more diet than exercise, if you exercise, you could get into a better diet, I guess. Like they feed off of each other. But as far as Digimon wise, oh, I don't think I'm going to be ever playing Digimon competitively again. Not unless they make some huge changes. This past year was very rough and brutal for me. It is probably the least that I have enjoyed the game in a very long time. Obviously with my break and the obvious step back from competitive play. Um, well, the big step from competitive play was because prizing sucked. Like prizing this year was just functionally not worth the entry fee. Um, this year more than other years, like last year, or I guess technically 2 years ago, wasn't super great, but like it was acceptable. This year just complete sucked. Or I guess technically last 2025. There we go. 2025 competitive season just completely sucked prize wise. Um, and then meta wise, it like there was no meta I could spot to and say this was a really fun and enjoyable format. At least not for me personally. Like, there were fun things about each individual format, but overall, this year was not super great. Like, we started 2025 off with EX8, and that introduced the whole Gallant problem. That then only progressively got worse throughout the entire year. So, if I had to pick, like, the deck of the year, Gallantmon was the deck of the year. It got the best support and it stayed relevant the longest. When it comes to like its overall game plan, how much support it got, and even being able to survive ban lists, like yeah, Gallantmon was definitely the deck of the year if I had to pick any deck.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
But yeah, so then after that, we got Special Booster 2.5, which introduced the rest of Gallant, the rest of Sakuya, because we also got Sakuya X stuff in EX8 as well. And then, what else did we get in 2.5? Royal Knights.
Wait, I
Yeah.
thought we technically started the year with the BT21 unified.
Competitive year, yes. Because competitive year goes from March to March.
Okay, gotcha.
But like actual set wise, we got BT two. We got 2.5. Really, I mean, it was really close to BT21 because they just had to bust out set after set. But I think like BT21 really started a big downward trend for me personally, because that's when a lot of issues were starting to like prop up, and that's why we needed the ban and restriction list, which didn't happen until like late BT21, early EX9. And EX9, like sales wise, completely flopped. That set did so bad. um Even though like looking back at it, the DM stuff wasn't that bad. Like, it was a cute little engine. And it wasn't that bad, like in hindsight. But man, did it just get completely overshadowed by BT22. And BT22, I think, was the healthiest format this year. I'd have to go back and at the data and look, but honestly, I think BT22, sadly enough, was the most healthy format this year. And it wasn't even that healthy because like you still had Gallantmon doing Gallantmon things. You had Omnimon OTK, left and right. Yeah, you had Royal Knights still doing Royal Knights. Like, BT21 really didn't change a whole lot of the format. It was just a depowered BT21, essentially. And BT21 was messed up enough because of Gallant and McGeedramon and a whole bunch of other hyper-toxic stuff. Then we had we had EX10. Yeah, EX10. Which the only relevant thing that came out of EX10 was
Black War Ace.
Right? Black War Ace as an individual card, and then you had Rocks and Minerals, which was the most oppressive OTK deck in the entire game. Like, that basically took every stack-based deck and said, you're unplayable. Which was really funny. As we learned how good that deck was really quickly. But again, we didn't have a whole lot of time in that format either, because then BT23 came around and Hoodie just completely fucked up everything. And BT23 was the power, like, that was the big power creep set of the year. It powered up Gallant, it powered up Royal Knights, it powered up Jesmon. Hoodie was just the best thing on pen and paper. Like, yeah. So, thinking about it, BT22 was probably the healthiest format of the whole year of 2025. Wow. We have no idea what dual cards are going to look like this year. Um, so that kind of scares me because if it's anything like aces, we're in for a world of pain. Because it sounds like dual cards are supposedly either options or tamers. So, like, if it's basically like ace options, I think that's pretty scary. Or like a power crept version of tamers, like that could be incredibly spooky. Like, I don't know. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do, but I'm not excited for what they're gonna do. Um,
Yeah, because it's kind of a mystery right now. So
yes. But so I'm not gonna be playing competitive Digimon. I guess I'm just gonna continue my big goal for 2026 is just continue my soul searching, like see if like I could try to find something I really enjoy out of the game because the current competitive landscape is just not it. Like uh last year I was trying to play a lot of casual decks. Um and like some of them were fun and then just Bandai's designs for some of them just made playing them wholeheartedly awful because they were fair decks. Like they weren't trying to power creep the game to do anything remotely unfair. So it just felt like no matter what I played when it came to a casual deck, I was like 5 steps behind my opponent, and it was just the worst and most miserable experience ever. Casual against casual is great because you're not just killing each other in a single turn by turn 3. Um, and there's actually like interactions and back and forths that's meant to be had. So yeah, but I do want to see out of 2026. Bandai, like you said, take a more proactive approach to bans and restrictions. I think that's if they're not going to balance their cards anymore, or balance decks, they need to start doing that. Like they have to. Otherwise, people are going to get sick of the game and leave the game because we saw event attendance just drop more and more throughout the year of last year. So that was pretty disappointing to see how much Digimon has dropped and fallen off competitively just because Bandai can't manage and balance their game. And that makes me sad.
yeah,
And then obviously, kind of taking from your page, like Liberator, I would like the app to come out, but I don't know. I don't know if it's ready. I really don't. So those are essentially my plans for 2026. Um,
um, there's one thing that you didn't mention that I technically do have for you, and I do need you to finish Digimon Story Time Stranger.
yeah, I know. Did you hear that somebody somewhere put out like a splash image that apparently Time Stranger did well enough where Bandai wants to do more Digimon games?
Good. I think Digimon Story Time Stranger well deserved proved the point that there is a seeking demand for it.
No, there's a very like it just goes down to how like it shows how grossly incompetent Bandai is at managing their IPs. Like, Digimon is a big IP, and it could be bigger if they do more things with it. I think the speed in which they were dubbing Beatbreak is actually borderline impressive, considering the last 2 dubs took 4 years to come out. And they weren't very good dubs either. This one looks way more competent. Um, like it's a good dub. I'm still gonna listen to the Japanese because I'm not waiting 6 whole
Too far
episodes.
ahead.
Yeah, Japanese is just too far ahead for me to pay attention to the dub. But I think like the speed in which the dub came out was borderline impressive. Because most of the time, a lot of like crunchy dubs are only like 3 episodes behind, so being 6 isn't that bad.
Yeah, if they could drop the dubs like in like piles, like if they're doing like what did you say? Like if they do like 6 episodes when they first release, and then maybe 2 weeks later they do another six, and they just keep doing that till they catch up, then yeah, I could definitely easily see myself switching to the English version then. But that's if Bandai actually pushes the effort to really get these dubs out ASAP.
I mean, it's not up to them if they're doing the dubs. It's up to whoever is managing and running the dubs to get the license to secure being able to dub it, and then getting the casting crew to actually do the dubs. And like dubbing is its a whole separate thing, but that's not
Right.
necessarily a Bandai thing. Um, but what I would like to see from Bandai is just the continuous support of Digimon, because like you look at the early 2000s and you just had season after season after season coming out. And like I get it, the anime landscape is completely different now than it was back then. Now you have to like book your studio in advance if you don't actually own one, like what Bandai does with what Digimon was doing. But I digress. Like I would like to see the continual hype train for Digimon just not stop. 2026 is going to be a very telling year because this is going to be the cool off year where it's just like your Liberator's basically going to be done. Unless they're continuing it through the mobile app, which we don't have a date for. Then you have the DLC for Time Strangers coming out, so that's like the cooldown of Time Strangers. I know it's going to take anywhere from 3 to 5 years for the next Digimon game to come out. But that's something Bandai should have thought of in advance, but I know they can't do that. So I don't know. It's another whole complicated thing. Then you have Beat Break just starting. So Beat Break is really the only big anime project that they have this year. And everything else is kind of just finished or wrapping up. So that's why I think like it's a really important to like there's activity in the IP, but it's really important to keep your foot on the pedal. Like cuz I know there's like mangas out there that people are writing that Bandai probably has nothing to do with. And like some other like little mild activity that's Digimon related, but in terms of like big macro Digimon, this is going to be a cool off year, and then next year is going to be the year to really prove itself, where it's just like I don't think they're going to have any activity next year. So what are they going to do to try to continue the hype train?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of that they could theoretically do is if maybe they could, because for Digimon Story Time Stranger, like they technically announced that they were in development of a new game and everything, but it still took a few years before they even did a trailer or even like announce a release date of when you can expect it and everything. So I don't know if maybe starting next year or even heck, they could even theoretically come out and say, "Hey, we are technically starting a new game. Like they're developing a new Digimon title." Because they could do a page out of I'm trying to think how I want to say this. A page out of Hacker's Memory because they use the base engine of that game of Cyber Sleuth, and they just added new characters and like they really didn't. It really didn't require much. It took like only 2 years to develop. So maybe they could do the same thing with Digimon Story Time Stranger. Use the engine, make some small improvements that people have kind of mentioned because they did a lot of surveys for Digimon Story Time Stranger, and they could just make those small improvements into it and just release a game.
I could see that. Because I do think this is going to be the year that the mobile app comes out. I don't think that they're going to cook on it much longer because, like, if you think about how development cycles go, most of the time, by the time you're showing off, like, beta testing your game, you're usually a year out. So, like, I definitely think we're going to be getting in 2026 the mobile app. If not this year, very early next year. Um, but I do think, like, based on where the Liberator story is as a whole, it does feel like by the time we do hit EX11, that Liberator pretty much will be done by March. And then that will leave like the 2 month time gap for the mobile app to come out and basically pick up the pieces. So that, like, ideally I would say summer is when the mobile app should come out, but not an expert on that. I'm just a guy on the internet with an opinion and trends and slight game development knowledge, because that's what my useless degree is in. But oh yeah, no. Digimon is definitely in an interesting spot because I feel like no matter what I say on the internet, people always somehow manages to not understand my messaging. Because like obviously we referenced it a couple of times. I put out a video that is related to combos and TCGs and if they're healthy. And the ultimate message that I kind of stated um was combos can be unhealthy, but they also can be fun. But it really is up to the companies who are running the game if the combo is like if combos are going to be a healthy or unhealthy thing. Like I that's kind of like the message I put out was like they can be good and they can be bad because not all combos are created equal. But ultimately, if they are those things, it's up to the developers. And I feel like Digimon right now, with the amount of designer negligence that's been going on, I feel like it definitely seems that combos are unhealthy because of the lack of defensive mechanics to try to counteract that. And by defensive mechanics, I'm not explicitly saying floodgates, aces, um, and delayed traps. Like, I'm not trying to say those. Because the best defensive card in the entire game is Omekamon. Like, that card is single handedly making Royal Knights viable because it's just oppressive enough to shut down most combo or OTK based decks. And we saw a little bit of success with puppets where it's just like, okay, you can still do your thing, but you have to be aware that Kaguya is just really hard to interact with. But this is kind of where Digivolve just kind of just absolutely shat on puppets, where it's just like, yeah, but you just Digivolve Kaguya, nothing matters. And that's ultimately where the meta direction headed, was just like, yeah, you can just Digivolve Kaguya, and then my entire game plan falls apart on its face. So like it's cool that we can have defensive mechanics, but they have to be designed in a very specific way in order for them to be viable. And I feel like the steps that we are taking to get to where we currently are weren't necessarily the best. So, like, obviously the question was pointed towards Digimon saying, are we going too far with combos right now? The answer is probably yes, but the real answer is it just depends on how much pressure we could put on Bandai, or if Bandai's going to do anything to actually bother to fix their game. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm trying to think how I would say this. Like, obviously, if Bandai, like, once there is a pressure for it, then Bandai would probably react. But the problem then becomes, would they be reacting too late? Like, is damage is already done? Like, players are said their piece and then they're out. Like, nothing you could do after that. Like, I hate the philosophy of, like, the threat of what players' voices. Like, I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Like, if players aren't buying like the product and everything because they say the product's not good, it's not worth it or anything. So Bandai goes, okay, well we're going to make sure that the next product's worth it. Well, damage is already done. Stores decided they weren't going to order any more products. Like there's like push and pull when it comes to this kind of stuff, if that makes sense.
No, there definitely is, and I feel like the majority of the sets in BT25 were misses rather than hits. Cause like you could go back and look at TCG player pricing, just to kind of like form. It's not the best barometer, but it is a barometer. Um, and the majority of the sets in 2025 just failed. Like they completely failed. Um, BT EX8 was good. Special Booster 2.5 was good. Then you go to BT21 was mid. It was like average at best. EX9 was a failure. That started to slowly rebound, but it was still ultimately a failure. You had BT22, which was okay. It was average at best. Then EX10 was a failure, and BT23 was a failure. And BT23 was a power spike set. Like, it really started to show that power is no longer selling. Because otherwise, like, everyone would just be buying BT23 left and right if it was all about power. I think, like, the theme of BT23 being Hacker's Memory just did not resonate with players, maybe because they didn't play that game compared to Cyber Sleuth, or like they just did not vibe with any of the characters or Digimon in it, which could ultimately be a thing. There was some very unpopular Digimon in that set. Um, and the more popular stuff only needed like a small handful of cards. Um, but yeah, so like it goes to show that sometimes power doesn't even sell, which is the awkward thing because we haven't really had a hyper power creep set that didn't sell. Because
Yeah, because like
BT16 was the last big one, and that flew off the shelves and was like a perfect storm of disaster. Because that one was short printed.
yeah, because like if you were to take BT16 for example, like Magnamon X Antibody, like it was probably if not the most dominant deck of its time and everything. Like we've never seen a power creep of that magnitude before, and like like Magnamon X Antibody was a secret rare, and that was going for pretty sure almost $80 at one point. But you take like Hoodymon for example, that like in this new set BT23, it's pushing boundaries like Magnamon X, and it has representation a little bit under the Magnamon X, but still noteworthy. And it's going like you could buy a Hoodymon for like $11.
Yeah, I gotta pick up a playset of that outside of my playset for my binder just to have a hoodie deck. Even though I do think the deck is gonna get hit, I just don't know what they're gonna hit. That's part of the problem. Like there's a lot of things, like a lot of moving parts and pieces that ultimately make up the whole that is the problem of hoodie. Like I know people are saying, "Oh, just play the counters to hoodie. We expect hoodie, so we're playing the counters to hoodie." But like Hoodie is doing a lot more damage to the game than what Bandai's initially thinking, and the community is trying to shrug it off as much as they possibly can and pretend that it's not actually a problem. Like, it's kind of hilarious how much denial people are in. And I guess they're not looking at the numbers the same way that I am. They're just like, oh, yeah, there's counters to it, so it's fine. And it's just like, yeah, but Hoodie's still 30% of winning decks and the most number one played and represented deck, and people still hate it, and it's still getting played because it's still one of the best things despite there being counters for it. And the fact that you have to run counters for it inherently limits the types of decks that you're able to play because there's no good counters to it.
Limits your counters to other decks. Like so say you're countering Hoodie, well now you're just exposing yourself to minerals or something else, for example.
Right, which is why Royal Knights is doing as well as it is. To be honest, like I honestly think Royal Knights wouldn't be as oppressive if it wasn't for Hoodie. But Royal Knights also has the best defensive card in the entire game. So I think like anyone who wants to play a semblance of a control game is going to play either that or Jessamon, because Jessamon, they just set up a Genku X and just say, uh, fucking go through this, break me, try it, go ahead, I dare you. But Jessamon also is a little bit more on the high rolly side, which is why it hasn't had as much success as a lot of the other decks. Like, we have the data. Bandai literally gave us the data on BT23. So it's just like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, obviously you're using the data differently because, you know, that's how everyone uses data, is however they see fits their narrative.
Or they interpret it.
Yep. The data's not wrong. What you say and how you use it can be. But yeah, so like I I don't think Digimon is gonna go anywhere. That's a very clear statement. We're not trying to doom and gloom that Digimon is dying. It's just Digimon is going through a growing pain that I don't think they realize they're in. Is kind of where I'm going with this. Like, I know they can move past this, and it very much feels like they're trying to, but they also it feels like they also just don't know how. Because do we have all of BT24 spoiled?
Think we do potentially. Because I mean, I think they've started moving on to EX11 actually, so I feel like they have.
I feel like they have as well if we are already on EX11 spoilers, because like the beginning of this year is like incredibly messed up in terms of like how much product they're pushing out. Because like Bandai does realize that January, February is like the worst times to put out sets. Like those, it's like movies. You put out movies in January if you want the movie to basically die, expecting it not to perform very well. Because that's the time frame in which everyone has wallet fatigue. And now here's 3 sets back to back to back between January, February, and March. Like, what are we doing? Pace your stuff better. But let's look at. I'm not gonna go too deep into the like card spoilers. I just wanna look to see if everything. Yeah, everything looks to be spoiled. So I guess I could eventually look at the set and start reading individual cards. But from what I was like vibing, I don't really feel like this is gonna hardcore power spike the game. So like I don't know if Titans is gonna be able to compete with Hoodie. I don't know if any of the Iliad decks are gonna compete with Hoodie. Like that's the big thing, is like you have to always compare like, can this compete with Hoodie? If the answer is yes, you might be viable. If the answer is no, then you're immediately unviable. So like that's the kind of pressure that I'm talking about when it comes to like sets and their overall perception. I think this set's going to do well because Time Strangers was a big success, and I think because Time Strangers was a big success, people are going to resonate with a lot of the cards and a lot of the characters. I do think like some of them are just kind of like, why is this here? Like the random Seekers support is like, that feels very weird. And we already know BT25 is gonna be the other half of Time Strangers, or maybe they're gonna break Time Strangers up into 3.
Yeah, because I mean they could. I mean they did that with Seekers, but I know I'm definitely looking forward to Time Stranger because after I beat the game, I mentioned how Alphamon's like my favorite Digimon. Jupitermon's coming in at a pretty close second, honestly, because of that game.
Jupitermon's pretty cool. He's got a good protection effect. my only issue is, does he actually have enough damage? That's my big issue. Is like Jupitermon's like a perfect example of this, where it's just like, okay, the card's really cool. He does a lot of cool things. But if he doesn't have the damage to back himself up, then everything he does essentially doesn't matter. I think he could have the damage. Does he have a way to unsuspend himself?
Can't recall at this time, honestly, with the Jupitermon.
Because I know there's the level 5 AGO in red. That has security attack inherent? No, it just natively has security attack.
I mean, we might see, because they've only done one form of Agiomon's level 5. Like, there's various other variants of his level 5. So, we should, theoretically speaking, next set, get some other ones. Because there's obviously, like, a vine-looking one. There's a cyber kind of looking themed,
And
like
then the
a
holy
darkness
one.
and a holy. So it's like there's other variants. So we could see more support for Jupiter Mons deck coming out with those level 5s.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to sit here. I'm not reading all of the cards. I'm just trying to think, like, what is Jupitermon's actual end goal? Like, how is this deck winning? Like, obviously the goal is to break all of the opponent's security, but I'm not seeing any particular like combo that's doing it in a single turn. So like
Yeah,
Jupitermon's the primary example of why would I play Jupitermon when what's its face? Magnetic exists. Because against a magnetic deck, you go up into your Jupiter, you do a whole bunch of cool things. You don't kill the opponent, and then the opponent goes, okay, I'm going to start off by de-digivolving your Jupiter. And then the entire deck starts falling flat on its face. Like
yeah,
that's what it feels like to me. Where it's just like I don't know how good it is in those types of situations.
because even while I'm thinking about it, because I'm looking at my collector's edition of Digimon Story Time Stranger figure I have, we don't even have Wraith mode either. So maybe we get the other level 5s in Wraith mode in the BT25 potentially.
Yeah,
Or we
because
just kind of tie up the deck.
I don't know. They could, because each year, usually they like to have one thing be the overarching thing that's going to be in all of the sets in the block. This is block 5, I think. That's the block we're currently in. So I don't think Time Strangers is going to be the thing for block 5. Like or block 6. I think block 6 might be the first block where we might not actually have a theme.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is
because this is
hard
block
to say.
5. Yeah, I think unless no, I think the theme might be beat break. I think they'll do beat break throughout the whole year.
Yeah, I could potentially see that. Because we are getting Beat Break or uh, Dusk of Dawn starter deck. Or, right, Dusk of Dawn or
Glowing Dawn.
Glowing Dawn. I don't know why I couldn't think that.
Because like beat break seems like it's the only thing in Digimon right now that's going on. So like obviously the anime is going to be done in October, which means if they do like a November set, that should cover the end of beat break, because they could do, here's the beginning of it. So this is basically like season 1, and then the next set would be season 2, and then the next set could be season 3, and then the last set season 4, because it's going to be 4 cores. At least,
Right.
again, comparing it to anime seasonal scheduling. Or they could do what they've done with the others and basically do it in halfsies, where it's just like, here's the first half, here's the second half. I doubt that they would do it that way because we don't know anything about BT26 or whatever the next EX set's going to be. But yeah, I'm literally just staring at Jupitermon and I'm just like, I don't, I don't see it. I really don't. Like, how is this going to take me off of Magnetic? It's not. Magnetic just comes out, de-digivolves it, removes it from the field, and then just wins the game. Like that's the kind of pressure that I'm talking about when it comes to like how the power progression is supposed to play out, where it's just like, does this beat Hoodie? Even if it does beat Hoodie, does it beat Magnetic? If it doesn't beat Magnetic, does this beat Royal Knights? Like, you have to think about like some of the top decks in current playstyles, and you really have to stop and think like, does this actually have a shot to exist? I know Eagle's Nest is running like proxy tournaments. No deck lists. I have no idea how they're doing, but I do know because Titans are purple and purple is broken as a color. Like, people are really experimenting with Titans because like he could just spawn a field. But again, like against Gallant, does that actually work?
Especially when medieval out there.
Uh, yeah, right. Like when in the face of medieval, in the face of Gallant, BT23, in the face of like Gallant X, like is that actually doing the job that it's supposed to be doing? Like I don't know. Like is it a good deck? I don't know. And I'm not obviously playtesting enough to know those answers, but that's the type of things that I personally think about, is like, is this good enough to make me leave when I'm currently playing? Because I know what's his face, the Triceratops dude.
Gamamon?
No, Styrakomon.
Oh yeah, the reptile deck.
Yeah. So like, the first thing that I was thinking of is, can this deck OTK? Like, that's already a bad sign. Like, me asking and thinking, can this deck OTK? The deck can OTK. The problem is, at least in my perspective, I'm not saying the card is bad, but in my perspective, the fact that I need to have an extra piece to OTK because I need to see my level 6, and I'm going from 6 to 7 versus 5 to 7, really puts the deck in my perspective down a peg. It's just like, okay, it can OTK, I just need to see more parts and pieces, which makes the combo harder to perform, which means I'm most likely not going to be successful with it, so I might as well just not play it. And that's I get it's a me problem, but that's just the rabbit hole my brain goes down. So like, I'm looking at BT24, and outside of like flavor, I'm not seeing it. I have to do a deep dive because I still have to do my pre-release thing. So I've barely read all of the cards and try to put any of the puzzle pieces together to really understand that. But my first impression is this set is not a power crept set, which is, I guess, good, but it's not making me excited to want to play it outside of it being a Time Stranger theme set. But that's just me.
Yeah, because I know, like I said, Jupitermon I'm like kind of interested in, but like how they look like they are doing support for, trying to like how I want to say this, the Olympus 12 and everything, like the design choice of how they're doing that set, it looks interesting to me. So it is definitely a kind of a wait and see for me as well. Also, when it comes to the Time Stranger.
Yeah, because we know they're gonna get more support. I think apps might be close to done. I think they have like what, two more characters that they're gonna be doing. I think they could squeeze two more characters out of it. And then obviously doing retreads like what they're doing with promos. Um but I'm trying to like think of what else. Yeah. No. I'm not seeing it. At least not without digging deeper. I think there's some fun things to look forward to. Don't get me wrong. Um so I guess like I know you're personally excited about Jupitermon, but is there anything else about BT24 that's tickling your fancy immediately?
Um, that I can think of, honestly, the Neptunemon and Venusmon deck, that was something that I also was kind of looking at as well, just like another deck to potentially play as well. I mean, I did kind of like the story from those characters in the game and just how their deck appears, well, how they seem to support each other and everything. It looks like there's like an interesting Venus Neptunemon deck I could theoretically make with that as well.
Uh, I think that looks fun. I like the design idea that they're doing with the Olympus 12, where the idea seems like you're supposed to pair two of them up. So like you could build Venus Neptune, you could build Venus Minerva, or you could build Venus Maruki, and it all just is supposed to work. Same thing with like just any other pairings. Like you could build Neptune Minerva or Neptune Maruki, um, and so on. So I really do like the idea and design of how they're doing them. And then it also feels like they're still trying to like there might be a way to be able to play all of them in a single deck, just like Royal Knights. And what I mean by all of them, I mean just play the good ones. Um, I just don't know how that's gonna end up working out. But I do think there's a lot of fun to be had inside of the set. Um, and I gotta do my research for sealed and limited still. So I don't think it's gonna. I think this is gonna be a good set out of the gates. And obviously, what we're seeing with BT20 or BT11 or not BT11, EX11. I guess we'll just talk about a little bit of the future sets to wrap things up. How are you feeling about EX11 and what they're doing?
I do kind of like the fact that so far from the reveals, it looks like they are actually trying to support every single Liberator that's ever been introduced. Because there's like Tyrannomon that appears to be getting support. Ice Snow is getting support in it. I'm trying to think what else was there. Uh, like the
It's just everything Liberator. Like it honestly
uh,
just feels like literally everything Liberator.
yeah, because
Um,
even the Cyborg Liberator guy, he's getting support as well. Uh,
this
Colossus
set
getting more
just
support, so minerals. Galactus gaining support.
what? So the funny thing is, the vibes that I'm getting from EX11 is the fact that most Liberator decks were wholeheartedly almost unplayable, and this is trying to power spike every Liberator deck to at least be remotely somewhat competitive. That's the vibe that I'm getting from EX11.
Yeah, because I think the Tyrannomon, he didn't look too bad himself either, or anything. I think it's just going to depend on what they actually do with these cards.
Yeah, like who's actually getting the bulk of the support because I don't maybe everyone gets a full new evolution line and then Shoto being the protagonist gets a little extra or like are some of them just getting literally like rookie tamer because I don't know if we're going to like or not rookie tamer rookie mega tamer like I don't know um it right now it's very up in the air but it definitely feels like EX11 is trying to be specifically power spiking all of the Liberator decks. And it kind of scares me a little bit, but at the same time, I know the majority of those decks were so unplayable that, like, they kind of just need it. But, like, is that a good thing?
I think so long as they don't do another power creep like we did with Medieval Gallimon, fine. Just playing catch up to what it already is, or even just a little, like just one dial down, I think would be good.
I think one dial down from what we've been seeing would be nice, because some of these cards look cracked AF. Like, there's no reason the Galactimon needs to be as strong as it is. Like, that card reads incredibly disgusting. But I also feel like the Shoto, just as an example, is just a power crep version of the starter deck Shoto. Like, I think that's a little bit more fine. But I feel like Galacti feels like a huge overreach. But I guess, like, the idea is he's supposed to be a control and defensive deck, and just having a completely immune Digimon at all times while being able to refill himself and control the field, it feels a really extra pushed. At least, like, that's how I'm seeing it. But
Yeah,
some
it's
of the
like
cards are good.
yeah, it's like so far the reveals like nothing looks too bad. Like it's interesting. Nothing's like trying to think how I want to say this. It's getting me vibes of like how trying to think EX7 technically was that when Liberators first came out?
Yeah, EX7 was Liberators.
Yeah, like it's live like the newest EX set is literally giving me vibes of EX7 where it feels like it's a good start. Like this should be a good product, theoretically speaking.
Like, power level wise, it's really sad that I'm more excited for EX11 than BT24. Like, I feel like that's an absolute crime, because I am enjoying Time Strangers more than I've ever enjoyed Liberator. So, like, I feel like from a personal level, I would want the reverse, but, like, power level wise, I'm looking at a lot of the EX11 cards and I'm like, yeah, that's disgusting. And then I'm reading BT24 and I'm like, yeah, that's probably fine. That's okay. It's cute. But I guess, like, some of the decks already were, like, kind of just disgusting in of themselves, if you, like, think about it. Because, like, does Rocks and Minerals need more support and better OTKs and control tools? Probably not. But did Invisimon need it? Definitely. Desperately. Ice and Snow needed it too. I don't think Tyrannomon exactly needed what he got, but I mean, he got it anyway. And definitely Galactimon did not need what he got. That card's just absolutely disgusting. I'm just scrolling through their Facebook page, seeing, like, some of the cards that were spoiled for EX11. But yeah, no. It's going to be very interesting because they're packing a lot of interest in these earlier months. And like I said, set wise, it's just back to back to back nonsense where it's just like, all right, one set EX11, next set, or BT24 next month, EX11 next month, reprint set, which I think, like, the reprint set's going to be a tiny breather, not a. But at the same time, depending on what's in the reprint set and how things are done, like, maybe it's not a breather. And then you got the starter decks shortly after that with BT25. And then right after BT25 is EX12, which is Shambhala. Like, geez. I do think Digimon needs to slow down, but I know they're not going to.
Yeah.
The big question is, to kind of, like, end and wrap things up, are they going to have 8 sets this year because of the reprint set? Or are they going to stick to their 7 and we're just going to lose a EX set?
I hope they honestly just do 7. no reason to overburden themselves or their own players, and even stores theoretically with like all this product and everything. It's uh, just is Bandai actually going to do that? Hard to say though, because unfortunately, Bandai kind of decides what they want to do.
Yeah, Bandai does what Bandai does, because I think that's like the big question. Because if this reprint set goes well, then we're looking at 8 sets every single year going forward, which already is scary because 7 is already a lot, and they already proved that they can't balance 7 sets. Which, I mean, to be fair, Magic can't balance 7 sets either. No, I don't think any game can realistically balance 7 sets coming out in a single year.
Yeah,
But
to me,
Magic also dropped reprint sets, so Magic is done reprinting cards in a dedicated set. So I don't
yeah,
know.
to me, it's just the way I see it is if you have EX sets that aren't doing too well, then maybe dropping one EX set and replacing it with a reprint set, it's not a bad idea.
I feel like EX sets are a 50-50 where they're either hot or they're not. Um, the last couple definitely have not, but I feel like EX, like you look at EX7 and EX8, and those were hot. Um, so
Or
like
even
it's
EX6 and six especially was definitely a really hot one as well.
Yeah, EX6, EX7, EX8 were all hot. EX9, EX10 were not hot. EX11 looks like it's going to be hot. So like it's about 50-50 if they're going to be good or not. Um I don't know. But I think the year is definitely going to be interesting, and we're going to have to just take it day by day and see how things develop. So, thank you for your time. I know this was a little bit on the longer side, and I know you're now going to be a busy person. So, I appreciate all the time that you had on the podcast, and you're always welcome back when you feel like you want to come back or if you can. But I understand life happens as per Teddy, as per Nako. Um, and things get busy. So, thank you for all of what you were able to do. It means a lot to me, and hopefully, it means a lot to my audience.
It's no problem. Thank you for having me. And obviously, I will still try to be here when I can. Unfortunately, just the future's kind of unforeseeable at this time, honestly.
Yeah, school can be rough. It very much can be. So, I just want you to have as much success as you possibly can. So, with that, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. So, thank you everyone for listening and making it all the way to the end. And I hope to see you all in the next episode. Later.